Hey guys, I'm Michelle. I'm an occupational therapist and a certified hand therapist of 20 years. And in this video, join me for a follow along wrist strengthening and stability exercise routine for beginners. You're gonna need the DMoose Flex Therapy Resistance Bar. This bar comes in 4 different resistance levels. The yellow is an extra light and has a resistance of 5 pounds. The red is light with a resistance of 10 pounds. The green is medium with 15 pounds of resistance. And the blue is the hardest with a resistance level of 25 pounds. Now, if you're just getting started on building your strength after a hand or a wrist injury, then the extra light or the light resistance bars by DMoose offer the right amount of resistance without causing too much strain. So I'm gonna go ahead and use this red light resistance for this video. Okay, let's start with our first exercise, which is wrist flexion. So what you wanna do is turn that bar vertically. You wanna bend your elbow around 90 degrees. Make sure your forearm is in more of a neutral position. So that's a thumbs up position. That's often a more comfortable position when you are just starting to work on strength of your wrist and your arm after a hand or a wrist injury. So if we're working on our right hand, then that is the hand that's going to be on top. Our left hand is going to just stabilize the bar. Now, if you're wanting to work on left wrist strengthening, make sure that that hand is on top, and then right hand would be stabilizing the bar. But I'm going to go ahead and show you on my right wrist. So go ahead and grab the top of that bar. Go ahead and squeeze the flex bar, and then what you want to do is bend that wrist forward in wrist flexion, hold a few seconds, and then nice and controlled, control that movement back to neutral. So again, squeeze the bar, twist forward, making sure just the wrist is moving. You're not moving that elbow out or that shoulder, okay? That's why you keep that elbow down at your side, hold a few seconds, nice and controlled back. And you would go ahead and do that one about 10 to 15 repetitions. Okay, so for exercise 2, we are going to go in the opposite direction, and that is wrist extension. So again, continuing to work on the right hand. That hand is still gonna be on top of the flex bar. Left hand is just stabilizing. You wanna go ahead and squeeze that flex bar, and then you're gonna go ahead and bend that wrist back into wrist extension. You're gonna go ahead and hold a couple of seconds and then relax. Now, if you wanna give yourself a little more resistance, go ahead and bend that wrist and start in a little bit more wrist flexion before you go into that wrist extension. That will make the bar twist a little more and give you some more resistance with that. And then you want to hold a couple of seconds again, and then nice and controlled back to neutral. Again, make sure when you are doing wrist extension that you are not using the whole entire arm, that you're truly keeping that elbow down at your side to really isolate those wrist extensors. And then you would want to do about 10 to 15 repetitions of those as well. Okay, exercise 3 is wrist ulnar deviation. So ulnar deviation is when you move your wrist towards the small finger side of your hand. So again, to do this exercise, keep that elbow at your side, forearm still in that neutral position, and the hand that you're working on is going to grab the top of the flex bar. Your other hand is going to stabilize the bar, and you're going to move that bar out in front of you just a little bit, so it's at a little bit of an angle here. And then what you want to do is you want to move that wrist in ulnar deviation, or like I said, towards the small finger side of your hand. It's not a big movement, but you're going to hold for a few seconds as you kind of press down against that bar. And then you're going to go ahead and relax back up to a neutral position. And again, press back down, nice and controlled, hold a few seconds, and then nice and controlled back to neutral. And you can make this a little bit harder by just kind of moving that bar out in a little bit farther away from you. Or you can make it easier by having it straight and just lightly moving in a very small motion in that ulnar deviation position and holding a few seconds and relaxing. So as you can see, you can make that exercise a little bit easier or harder, depending on how that feels for you. And you'd want to do about 10 to 15 repetitions of those. Okay, our fourth wrist strengthening exercise that you can do with the DMoose Flex Therapy Resistance Bar is radial deviation. So radial deviation is when you move your wrist towards the thumb side of your hand. So to do that, whichever hand you're working on is going to grab the top of the flex bar and move the bottom of the bar a little closer to your body. This is going to give you a little bit more resistance as you go into some radial deviation. So again, make sure you keep that elbow more at your side, just to make sure you truly can isolate that wrist, and you want to squeeze that flex bar and then go ahead and bend that wrist towards your thumb side or in radial deviation. You want to hold a couple of seconds here and then relax. Now this is not a big movement, so you want to just go nice and slow and controlled with this motion. Pull into some radial deviation, hold, and then relax. And you can make this a little bit harder just by changing up the position of the bar. You can make it a little bit easier also just by making the bar a little more vertical. That can be helpful if you are just starting out. So just move that bar in whatever position's comfortable for you, holding a couple of seconds and relaxing. And again, you'd want to do about 10 to 15 repetitions of these. And there you've just done 4 wrist strengthening exercises for beginners using the DMoose Flex Therapy Resistance Bar.